Hello and welcome to the Telescope. Every week we'll bring you a fresh insight from the biggest car market in the world. Today we get to drive the XPeng P7 and we are at a familiar place because we shot the Zeekr 009 review at this exact location. I like this place because there's a structure behind us that looks a little bit like this. It's that thing over there. Could you make out what it is? It's a simple coffee house. It's a 6-story tall, completely steel structure, all direct line, very sci-fi looking coffee house. Now look at the design of this P7. I think you can see the similarities. This is a car that sells on its design. I've already done a static review of this car, so my detailed opinions on the exterior, interior design, and also this car has quite a lot of surprises in its interior packaging. You can check out that video. But today in this GT silver color, it does look like a spaceship, doesn't it? On the move with the XPeng P7. Now, the original P7 is also quite a good-looking car, still very good-looking, even by 2025 standards. But when you drive that car, there's a particular disconnect that car's chassis is very comfort biased, feels nothing like that very sporty, long bonnet sitting on the rear axle, short rear overhang. The driving dynamics and the exterior design of that car just doesn't line up. Now, in the first 500 meters of driving this car, I can already tell you that kind of distinct disconnect between the driving dynamics and the exterior design doesn't exist on this car. Now, first of all, this cockpit feels purposeful. The steering wheel is small and there's a lot of very angular, attacking, aggressive lines on the interior. This car's the whole kind of all of the control surfaces and all of the steering wheel, all of the buttons doesn't feel vanilla, if that's the right word. By that I mean the interior designer is on the same page with the exterior designer and the driving dynamics, because it knows the owner of this car will want to operate this car in a certain way so that it demands the interior to be more interesting than just another, big screen in the middle, an HUD here, and just a vanilla driving environment. This feels like an environment with driving considered in mind. I already mentioned that this car is very low and the driving position is also very low. You can see the window line is just at my chin. You can see it really low in this car. And also, this steering wheel sticks out just at the right position. When I mentioned this in a static review, the product manager of this car is currently sitting in the back of this car. And when I mentioned this car's steering wheel adjustment range is bang on, he says, finally, someone understands what he's been working on. This car's steering wheel sticks out 20 mil extra compared to the original P7, and that makes all the difference. If you can nail the driving position, sit really low and get the steering wheel close to your chest, then you're already halfway there at producing a car that driving enthusiasts would like. Now, this car being a battery electric saloon and just over 1.4 meters tall, of course, it doesn't have a physical sun blinder. Now, on other cars, I would have already been moaning about this, but it's different with this car because they've spent a fortune on the glass roof of this. This is triple silver coated glass. That the overall total energy that comes through this glass is just 11% of the total sunlight energy, and a large chunk of that is the visible light. If you take that away, then the amount of heat that comes through this glass, that comes through this triple silver coated glass, is so small that I'm not exaggerated to say that this glass roof feels cooler than this side window. That's how strong this glass is at heat resistance. Let's just cut to the chase. This car's obvious rival is the Xiaomi SU7. There's no other way around it. Compared to that car, this car's chassis setup is slightly more comfort biased. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. If you've driven the Xiaomi SU7, I totally understand some people find it to be too sporty. you can change your drive mode by just flicking through this mode dial here on the bottom right of the steering wheel. And in the sport mode, this car feels like this is the mode that I will use most of the time if I'm driving this car. And this car has the dual chamber air springs as standard across the range. And I say this as a compliment, that this car in the sport mode especially doesn't feel like a car with air springs. If you're just looking for comfort, then air springs, yes, it takes away that last physical link between the car and the road. But for people like me who really likes driving, air springs, if you don't calibrate it correctly, most of the time is a downturn. When I hear some car has air springs, it's an immediate no for me if I'm purchasing a car for myself, because most of the time I prefer the direct feedback that there's a certain level of honesty that a steel spring gives you. This car, despite being air springs, but this car, because it's on the dual chamber air springs, and when you are in sport mode, it just uses that stiffer mode that gives you more control, that gives you more lateral control. It doesn't feel like, in the sport mode, doesn't feel like a car with air springs. And that's a good thing, that's a compliment for me. You can hear this acceleration sound behind me. I think, with all due respect, none of them get this right. I'll show you a piece of sound that's from an EV that resonates with even, I think will resonate with even the most hardcore petrol heads. And that is a proper sound. This, I think people who are working on this kind of sound doesn't really know what performance cars owners or drivers really want. They think we need to produce a sound that is different from petrol-powered performance cars just because this is an EV. But I would like to see more sort of mechanical proportion of this sound to come through, and not just like this kind of a high-pitch electric whining sound. This doesn't feel right, but this feels like a serious car. You know, the body is ultra stiff. They've even benchmarked this car's weight to be roughly on par with the Porsche Panamera at roughly 2,085 kilos if you go for the single motor version. I know that's hardly Lotus Elise, but a car of this size, if an electric car can be on the same weight as the petrol-powered performance saloon, then at least you are not giving up anything in terms of dynamics by going EV. And this car is on 275 section rear tires. It's also got active brake cooling duct here in the front air intake. This feels like a serious car. But still, as I said, it always has, even in its most focus mode, it still has a layer of daily usability in mind. This is slightly more comfort biased than the Xiaomi SU7, but if you roll this on the road today, I guess you can attract just as much, if I think this attracts more eyeballs than even the Xiaomi SU7, because this just looks like a car that's coming from 2032 or 2035, but it's on the road today in 2025. This is a full-on production car. I mean, I will show you again the exterior design. No matter how long we spend, how much time we spend with this car, the sort of unrealness of this exterior design doesn't wear off. This P7 marks a turning point in a Chinese electric vehicle market, because up until this point, all of the electric vehicles are kind of being more of a utility row. You know, it's all about space, range, and practicality. But such is the maturity, the variety of choices in China's EV market, that we can afford to do interesting cars like this. I'm very glad that this car exists. Also, I still can't quite believe, just like the coffee house behind us, that this P7 is already among us. This is a full-on production car. We're shooting this on August the 13th, 2025. And this car looks like it comes from 2035, is already on the road with us today. That is all from the telescope today. If you enjoyed this video, keep watching, keep subscribing. More videos coming along very soon.